ChristianGeekCentral.com.
Hey, I'm Peter Franson from ChristianGeekCentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. All right, this is the Christian Geek Radar, a new segment I'm playing around with where I basically shine a spotlight on some cool stuff that may be of particular interest to Christian geeks. And at ChristianGeekCentral.com, we've collected just a ton of links to websites that are produced by Christians or that I think would be of particular interest to Christians. You can suggest websites for me to include in that. I'd love to get your suggestions. I'll give you details on that toward the end. But anyway, what I'm planning on doing in this segment is just kind of highlighting those. This is something I've wanted to do for a while with Christian Geek Central and with the Spirit Blade Underground podcast, is just be an advocate and a spotlight on Christian geeks or content creators that are creating content with excellence that I think would be of particular interest or value to Christian geeks. So I'm going to highlight just 4 this time. The first one is Everyday Gamers. Now this is it's a blog and a podcast, got a bunch of different things going on. I'll just kind of read the description from the About page here. It says, Everyday Gamers is a gaming and entertainment site created by Christians. Basically, we just love playing video games, and we also share a strong passion for our Lord, Jesus Christ. Everyone is welcome to the site, and we won't try to preach to you or anything unless you ask us to. Everyday Gamers is a place where everyday gamers like you and me come to hang out and talk about video games. We hope you guys like the site and come back often. So, yeah, they've got a bunch of different things going on here. They've got a number of podcasts, the Edge podcast, Push Play, Queued Up, Fish Food, The Fish Bowl. As I was looking through these, I was trying to figure out kind of what's the theme that kind of differentiates these podcasts from each other, and I didn't have much luck, honestly, with figuring out Fish Food and The Fish Bowl. Obviously, they're going for kind of like the some kind of reference to the quote-unquote Christian fish, which is part of their logo, a form of that. Queued Up and Push Play, from what I could see, especially Queued Up, seem to be about video game music. But the main podcast that they're updating most often is the Edge podcast. They've got a link on their website also for tabletop games, but I mean, there's not a whole lot going on there. Mainly just a few, just like 2 posts right now. They've got a lot more going on in terms of reviews. If you mouse over the reviews link at the top, there's a drop down for all kinds of reviews organized by I was going to say console, but I guess platform would be the better word for it. PC, PS4, Xbox One, Wii U, and so on and so forth. And then they've got their articles. They've got a bunch of different articles, feature articles, and just kind of musings by the main guy running the place. Yeah, and they've also got a YouTube channel, which there's not a ton of activity there that's consistent, but it's definitely, they got some neat stuff there to check out. They went to PAX South 2015, which is a pretty cool thing for a little and little, because we're all basically little in the grand scheme of things compared to the mainstream stuff. But for this Christian website that's focused on video games to have a presence at PAX South, that's pretty cool. So anyway, from listening to the podcast and just kind of sampling it a bit, the one that gets updated really is the Edge podcast, or the EDG podcast, which stands for Everyday Gamers. And this is, I think the podcast is kind of the main content of their site, although as I said, there are a bunch of different articles that you can check out. But this is, I think, a podcast that might be good for you if you're like in a carpool group or something like that with people that aren't Christians, but you maybe want to listen to something or just kind of take in or enjoy some content that is produced by Christians and kind of has a Christian atmosphere and spirit about it, but is not specifically talking about Christian theology or Christian, or biblical living as it applies to the geek hobby or something, something that's going to be a little bit more focused toward Christian gamers, like, say, on the Theology Gaming podcast, which is part of our network, or, this podcast, or if you're watching the video, this channel. So this is going to be just more of kind of like a way to enjoy video games in a Christian environment, but without going into Christian theology really, or a lot of specifically Christian geared content. So, but anyway, yeah, I think what they're doing is definitely valuable and worth checking out if it sounds like something that would interest you. All right, moving along to an author, and this is Scott Appleton, who I interviewed on the Spirit Blade Underground podcast. You can check that out on episode 236. Scott Appleton started out as a self-published author and then moved on to AMG Publishers, and was full-time writing for a while, and now is writing part-time, and is kind of sharing his journey with you on his blog at authораppleton.com. Most of it is his thoughts about writing and how he approaches writing, and then updates on his work and stuff like that. But occasionally there are some personal bits too. Scott Appleton, now it's interesting, on his website here at the top, it's got Author Appleton, and this is new since the last time I visited his site. We've been linking to it for a while, since before I interviewed him, and this wasn't there last time I was here. Author Appleton, it says at the top, bringing you family-friendly fiction. Now, if you know me, that phrase kind of has like a sting to it. I actually kind of hate the expression family-friendly, or, no, let me put it that, I don't want to say that. I don't hate that expression. I hate how much it is valued and prioritized. I think we need family-friendly entertainment. I think we need family-friendly fiction. But I hate how that's just kind of like this buzz phrase that's like, if it's Christian, then it should be family-friendly. And it kind of like gives a vibe of being really sterilized, in my opinion, to your work if you put family-friendly on it. And if you feel the same way, I want to let you know that that's not the case with Scott Appleton. As I mentioned in my interview with him in episode 236 of the Spirit Blade Underground podcast, the opening scene of his first book of the, what is this series called? The Sword of the Dragon series, involved this really gruesome encounter with a dragon just like slaughtering people, and so he certainly doesn't shy away from gore and violence and darkness, even though he is marketing his books toward the young adult crowd. But from what I can tell from the samples I've read, from the book covers, he's just producing some really great stuff. So if you're looking for a new author to try out, and you're interested in trying one that's going to be injecting some degree of Christian thinking into his writing, then you could do a lot worse than to check out Scott Appleton at authораppleton.com. All right, moving along, maybe that author doesn't catch your eye, but you are interested in checking out just kind of fantasy or sci-fi or speculative fiction from Christian writers, or maybe just some thoughts on those genres from a Christian perspective, then I think I can pretty easily recommend SpeculativeFaith.com. This is a website that's largely article-based. There's no like a podcast that I know of or YouTube channel that goes along with it. So it's just lots of articles, but they publish quite frequently, and there's a lot of good thought that goes into these articles. A lot of different topics. They'll have like interviews with people that are going from self-publishing to small publisher and stuff like that. So they'll have those kind of like behind the scenes kind of interviews and articles for small Christian publishers. They'll have topical articles just about like writing in general. Let's see here. What else they got? I'm looking at right now an article about why materialist magicians and sour stepmothers are cruel to Cinderella. Cinderella being the new Disney movie, the live-action Disney movie that just came out, so in some ways similar to the ways that I like to engage with fiction and examine fiction. They're doing some similar things here. And I didn't review and don't plan to review Cinderella. So if that kind of thing interests you, SpeculativeFaith.com would definitely recommend it. Let's see what else we got here. This is an interesting article. I just kind of skimmed through what's in a book cover, where they talk about, should we judge books by their covers? What do covers indicate or not indicate these days? Which I think is a really relevant topic, especially when you're looking looking at small press publishing or self-publishing, I personally take the opinion that if a cover looks really homemade, I'm probably not even going to consider reading your book. And I kind of hate to say that, but it's just kind of like a filter that I'm more and more comfortable using, because in my mind I'm thinking to myself, well, if they didn't dedicate enough time and resources and money and passion to figure out how to produce a product that is going to be visually in terms of the cover and how they present it and market it on the same caliber and level of excellence and quality as mainstream, then how can I be assured that their writing is going to be held up to the same standards as mainstream fiction? And I'm the kind of guy who, like, I want to have my cake and eat it too. If I want to go and see if I go see a Christian movie, I want that movie to at least be as good as a solid made-for-TV movie. I want it to stand up, or just a solid independent film, because that's what it is. If it's a Christian produced, outside of the Hollywood system, I want it to reflect other independent films of the same budget and types of resources, So anyway, that's my opinion. That's a little bit of a rabbit trail, but you can get the speculativefaith.com opinion in their article, What's in a Book Cover. And one of the coolest things on this site, oh yeah, here's another article on violence in speculative literature and their kind of stance on that. That was another really interesting article, just talking about the potential to see hypocrisy in the Christian stance that, books can have and should have, dark, gritty violence and stuff like that, but they shouldn't have language and they shouldn't have sexual content in them, So what's the difference, if any, when it comes to violence? And I certainly have an opinion on that, but I'll maybe save that for another time. In fact, I am planning on covering kind of like questionable content. I put that phrase in quotes, covering that topic again, maybe not too long from now. But you can check out Violence in Speculative Literature, a really interesting article, again, at speculativefaith.com. But getting back to what I was going to say a second ago, one of the greatest things I think about this website is their library. If you go to their main page and just click on library, then what you're going to find is this massive listing of books that are, written as speculative faith titles. So fantasy, sci-fi, horror, all that kind of stuff. And you're going to get their book covers, and then you get a little, if you mouse over them, you get a little description. And then if you click on that, then it's going to take you to a little, deeper description of the book, and includes a search Amazon link if you want to get your hands on it. And the reason I think this is really cool is Speculative Faith is not a publisher. And so this listing in their library, they're making an effort to basically include a listing for every fantasy and sci-fi or speculative faith Christian book that has been published. I think they're even, by the looks of some of the covers, they must be including self-published and certainly small publisher books as well. But it's not limited to a publisher, and so this is a potential way that if you're looking for a new author that's a Christian author that's writing geeky type fiction, you can go there and you're not limited to just one publisher, and you're going to see, boom, just a ton of material there that you can check out. So Speculative Faith at speculativefaith.com I think is a great resource. And then the last site I think of interest to Christian geeks that I want to hit this time is the Dice Tower. Now this, I've listened to, love the podcast, love the channel. This is Tom Vassell, who I interviewed on episode 226 of the Spirit Blade Underground podcast. And this is not a site that is geared toward Christians. None of this content is geared toward Christians. But what I noticed when I was watching these videos and then listening to the podcast more and more, I was like, this guy, I mean, I'm seeing just in his character, in his values, in just kind of like who he is, and the glimpses I was getting of just kind of his family life and the way he viewed the world. I was like, I more and more I was thinking I would be shocked if I found out if this guy was not a Christian. In the same way that when I interviewed Brent Weeks, and he shared his faith publicly, in terms of his writing career context. For the first time that he was a believer, he hadn't, put that information out there prior to that interview. And, but I could just tell from his writing, I was like, I'd be shocked. Same thing was the case here with Tom Vassell. They've got like a whole YouTube channel, and let me see if I can get to that channel here. How do I? Oh no, they're not going to let me do it. Usually there's like a little icon that says like watch on YouTube, but there is just, there's tons of YouTube content that's coming out from the Dice Tower. It started out with just Tom Vassell and one or two people helping him out, and now he's got a whole armada of other reviewers that are helping him with his stuff, and putting out their own reviews. And so if you are into board games, tabletop games, card games, dice games, not so much role-playing games. It's pretty rare that they'll feature anything about a role-playing game on the Dice Tower content. But if you're into any kind of other tabletop gaming, this is your place to go. And it's also refreshing because what Tom brings to the hobby is, I think, perspective. That sometimes, he'll do, like, for example, at the beginning of his videos, he'll do crazy things with board game components. He'll like dump them all on a table in slow motion, or he'll be frying them up in a frying pan or something like that. And people will freak out as they as they see this. They'll be like, "Why are you doing that? You're destroying these," or whatever, And his position on that is just really refreshing and neat to see. It's just like, it's just stuff. It's just stuff. And I'm not doing stuff that actually ruins it. It might, make it, a little less than perfect here and there over time, but no more so than just using the games and playing with the games and having fun with the games. And so his view is all about games are about getting together and having fun with people. And he's a very relational guy, and he certainly brings that to the hobby. And so it's just wonderful to see somebody who is really engaged in biblical living and in trying to model their life after Christ, and bringing that in a very uncompartmentalized way into his hobby. So anyway, those are the 4 sites that I want to feature this time. You can find a ton more websites with excellent content through our portal at ChristianGeekCentral.com. If you'd like to suggest a website for the Christian Geek Radar, you can drop a link in the comments below or email me at paeter@spiritblade.net. And please like, share, and subscribe after watching this video if you want to help out CGC and the other websites that we highlight. Thank you very much for watching.
For thine is the Christian, and the Geek, and the Central.com. Resistance is futile. You will be assimilated.